Hi, and welcome to A Drummer's Guide to, the podcast answering your questions about what it takes to be a professional musician, aside from playing your instrument. So if you'd like to ask your own question, if you have a question right now that you're thinking, oh my gosh, I need help with this, you can do that if you go to emilydrums.com/AMA. And if you ask with as much detail as you can, then that would really help me in sort of creating a very specific episode to you that I feel that often spills out into other people's experiences and they feel very heard and seen and all that sort of stuff. So the more detail, the better. So just in case you don't know, my name is Emily Dolan Davis. I've been a drummer since 1999, professionally since 2008, and helping others to do the same since 2018. And that's why we're here today. And I have to say a huge thank you for all the questions that have been coming in recently. Like there's a backlog. I'm so pleased. It's so fantastic. So please keep sending in your questions and be patient with me. I am making my way through them. And yeah, like I say, if you have a question right now and you're like, I need help with this, then go to emilydrums.com/AMA. And that is exactly what Suzy has done. Hi, Suzy. I read this question and I was like, Suzy, I love you. Because, you know, when you just think, we're the same in a lot of respects, and I'll explain what I mean. So this, just to preface this, I think this is going to be a very, let's call it female experience-centric episode, but there are certainly things that are going to be useful for all people. Because yeah, it's some of this stuff really is universal regardless of what your gender is. So here we go. Suzy, let's go. Suzy is saying, this may sound crazy. Best opening line ever, can I just say? It doesn't, by the way. Before even saying the rest of this question, I'm telling you now, it's not crazy. This may sound crazy, but have you had many discussions about women's health in the music industry? As a female drummer who originally trained as a doctor, come on, Suzy, I feel like I should know, but I've had loads of questions and had to work out loads. I can hardly find anything online on the topic. Stuff like, oh, hold on, I've just messed myself up. Yeah. Stuff like how my cycle affects my performance and how to plan for and manage that. Varying from the pep talk I need to give myself when I am luteal. I never know how to say that. Luteal, the luteal phase, and feel like the rubbishest drummer ever, to needing a particular eye on my tempos when I'm ovulating, and that I may need extra time alone and pre-shows when I'm on my period so I don't feel overwhelmed. There are strengths too. I love that you have given me strengths here. Like I'll be able to pull out that tricky fill off, no problem, or do a crazy run of shows at certain points in my cycle. In particular, I've noticed how different clothing affects my health of my intimate areas, and then tried different things to manage that, knowing that drumming is so physical. This is what I'm talking about. This is an in-detail question. Right. FYI, there's only a tiny amount of stuff on this and it's all related to high-performance female athletes, so it's not that easy to translate to music. It would be nice to know if other people are going through the same stuff or if it's just me. Also, how to look after my body and stay adequately nourished, hydrated and uninjured when I've got loads of shows on, and how this varies with my cycle. This is probably more drummer-specific as it can be so physically demanding. How I've had to consider my equipment that works with my body, like kit size. I'm very short, throne type, and taking a spanner with me everywhere so I don't hurt my wrist, tightening stands, etc. Also, how to deal with the mental health impacts of the constant, are you loading in for your boyfriend, love? Or, I wasn't expecting you to be so good comments that you get from being a female drummer. But that's probably about 3 episodes right there, lol. Ideally, I'd love to have, love for there to be a sense that female musicians would feel able to discuss these topics without feeling like it's awkward or no big deal. And that there was some more info in the topic in the public domain, so that if people were struggling with this, they would be able to find out some things that have worked for other people too. Suzy. I love you. And I love this question. Let me tell you, my first initial reaction when you started, like at the beginning of your question was like, Suzy, you're educating me, because I will be completely honest with you right now. For the majority of my career, in fact, the majority of my life, forget about just career, life, I would not accept that being female was any different than being male in terms of having to deal with things differently. I was just like, humans are humans, rah, 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 rah. Like, I do not accept this. And, whilst it had benefits, I will say 100%, because, I think it didn't, put barriers on what I thought was possible. Like, mentally, I didn't put myself in, put restrictions on what I was capable of. The flip side of that is that when things like hormones were definitely affecting me, I was so harsh on myself in terms of like self-talk and all these things of like, you should just be better. Why can't you do this? You know, the comparison thing. I know when we talk about comparison, we often talk about social media comparison. But let me tell you, real life comparison, just as bad. So if you're on the road with a bunch of guys, which is my experience the majority of the time, you know, 95% of my work was with guys, like 95 people I was working with, 95% of the people I was working with, geez Louise, was guys with guys. And they would just be able to be consistent. They would, no, don't get me wrong, everyone's got their stuff they're dealing with, and I'm not minimizing that at all. But I felt like some days, as you said, Suzy, some days things would be such a struggle and I would be exhausted. And again, let me tell you, Suzy, the reason that I love you is that, sorry, this is a bit sort of blah, I feel like, and I might be wrong, I'd love to say you can tell me if I'm wrong, but we're not speaking, but it's a bit one way. But I may be wrong, but you're someone that really likes to find patterns in what you're doing, to make sense of them. And then also you like to know reasons that things are happening. Why am I feeling like this? And when I tell you, I resonate with this so much in terms of just understanding what is going on. And as I said, for me, because I'd rejected this idea that by being a woman, I have these other things that would be affecting me. I just completely rejected it. So if I was tired on tour, it was because, I must have just slept badly last night. Or let's say, I have this thing. So when I'm on my period, the sort of, it's probably the day before, well, a few days before I get clumsy, like the clumsiest. So I have to be quite careful. And then, the first day of my period, often I'm so discombobulated and so, my coordination is just all over the shop. And this is, like I say, I found it with my drumming. I find it currently with my boxing. All of a sudden, it's like I've never thrown a punch before. And I've been doing it for 2.5 years at this point. And it's so annoying. I'm not going to lie. It's annoying, but, I did work out the kind of feeling, discombobulated with my period, with my drumming not even, was it early? I don't remember when I realized that, but when I did, I was like, okay, I need to make allowances for that. And unfortunately for me, unfortunately, rather than going, okay, that's just how it is, it was like, no, you must be better. So for me, what that looked like was being so over prepared to the point that even on my worst day, and again, even that annoys me that that's how I was framing it, that the first day of my period was my worst day, I could still do the job. And I think it ended up being not framed for me around my period. It was just generally, like, even when I'm feeling exhausted, which was a lot for various reasons that were not to do with my cycle, I had to be at such a level that even at my worst, it was still good enough to do my job. I grew up with Charisse, she has the same mentality we both do. We've always had that, where it was like, and again, I don't think for the longest time either of us even acknowledged that we were women, to some degree at least. So yeah, I think, like I say, I feel like you're educating me. Oh, I wanted to say as well, I know you said that there's not a lot of literature on like cycles and being a musician, and you're right, I don't know of any. There was a book that I got recommended for, it was actually within my boxing gym. Again, I think it's more, I haven't read it yet. It's called Period Power by Maisie Hill. It's meant to be fantastic. I haven't read it yet. And it's harness your hormones and get your cycle working for you, which I love. You've probably read it, quite honestly, Suzy, because it sounds like you've really been looking into this so much more than I ever have. So yeah, like I say, it's not something that I've allowed myself, I suppose. But in saying that, I thought, it's worth speaking about, because I think that you're right, there isn't a lot of literature. I don't think a lot of people are talking about it, because it's kind of like the last thing on the list. Do you know what's awful? So I didn't read this question properly until I read it today. And I thought that this was a question about, because I just saw that it was something about being a woman, and I thought, oh, it's going to be, what's it like being a woman in the industry sort of question. So the fact that it's from, because often those questions are from men, I will say. And the fact that this was a question from a woman, but then it's like, no, we're not talking about general, we're talking specific. And I love that so much. So what was I going to say? So sorry, because there were so many questions within this, I was like, right, I need to hit some certain points that I wanted. So let's get back to this. So taking into account the kind of cycle side of things, but taking into account also the fact that I rejected that personally as an influence on how I was feeling while I was doing my energy levels. What I did, which I inadvertently, did end up, I would have done the same thing had I have taken my cycle into account. And I feel like, Suzy, you're already doing this. And like I say, I feel like we'd get on if we sat down and had a chat. I feel like we speak for a very long time. Is noticing patterns in my energy levels and what was happening for me. More recently, I have taken into account my period side of things. And as I say, first day of my period, very discombobulated physically, but my energy levels are crazy through the roof. So leading up, let's say 3 days before I come on, 3-4 days, I start to get really like down, and mentally I'm not great. Literally 2 days ago, I was like, meh, and I knew what was happening. I knew it was like, I just want to come on so I can release all these hormones or whatever the actual biological thing that happens, because I barely know. And as soon as I came on, I was like, and there was like this relief. And I'm on day 2 right now, and I have energy, and I know that I can talk and be creative, and that I have the capacity to do that. But similar to you, Suzy, depending on where I am in my cycle, sometimes I'm like, I feel flat, I feel uninspired, I just don't know what to do. So what I've started doing in those scenarios is being a little kinder to myself. I think is definitely that, because I think I was I was punishing myself for being like tired or not having energy or feeling down or feeling bad or blah, 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 blah. And I was trying to fix myself. Whereas actually what I'm realizing, the older I get, I'm not going to say the wiser I get. I don't feel wise, not even a little bit. But yeah, the older I get, the more I'm like, okay, this is how it is. Nothing needs to be fixed necessarily. Sometimes it does. I can't help myself. I like to be proactive, but sometimes it's just like, no, just allow this, just allow it, it's fine. You can do this stuff tomorrow or later or even next week sometimes. Or let's say when it comes to the podcast, maybe you take a week off. That's okay. Nobody's going to die. Some people might be a little upset, but that's fine. They'll deal with it. They will get over it and they will be fine. And it sort of comes down to that of you are human. You have good days and bad days and all the days in between, and that is okay. So you were asking specifically as well about on tour, because I do have experience of that without realizing it, if that makes sense. So for me, when it came to being on tour and being on, or like I say, I'm for me, my experience of my cycle is very limited in terms of understanding anything past days that I'm on my period to days that I'm not. I know in theory there's this luteal phase, there's the ovulation phase, and then all this stuff, but I don't have enough information, education on that at all. And it's my own body, which I almost feel a little bit ashamed about. But at the same time, I know that so many women feel like this. So it's fine. I don't know. I just know what my body is like. And I kind of wanted to frame that in terms of, for everyone that's listening, I think you have to understand your own body and what it's trying to tell you at different times, whether that's within a month, whether it's just day to day. I think it's really important to just notice the patterns within your own body and how you can manage your body in a kind way and not necessarily try and force yourself to do things that you don't want to do, or, just knowing when to be soft with yourself and knowing when you can like lean into these, like us women have those energetic sort of phases, if you like, where we can do stuff and just going right. And what I've started to try to do, although I'm not doing a good job yet because I don't quite understand it yet, is trying to plan my month rather than before I'd be planning my week. And to a degree I still do, but I will try to I'm going to use the word overload, which is the wrong word, but load up my more energetic times of the month with more creative tasks. And then sort of the back end of my month is more chilled out, sort of like admin-y stuff or editing or things like that. That's what I'm personally doing right now. But in terms of when you're on the road, at the end of the day, you are on someone else's schedule. So you've got to kind of just make allowances for how you're going to handle those days, those, periods of time, no pun intended, where you are going to be struggling with, the hormones and how that's going to be affecting you. But quite honestly, Suzy, it sounds like you are incredibly aware of what's going on with you and how you need to adapt your day-to-day to still be able to do your job, which is fantastic. The fact that you know that when you're sort of in certain parts of your cycle, you need to be alone before gigs so you don't feel overwhelmed. To me, that is gold that you know that about yourself. It's fantastic. So, as I said, I didn't know these things about myself. I just thought, here's my thing. This is how not in touch with my feelings, my body, and all of these things I've been for the majority of my life. Whenever I would feel anything but okay, or anything above that, so happy, positive feelings, anything negative of that okay sort of bar, if you like, was, oh, I'm just tired. So I had no idea what I was actually feeling. I would just put it all under this umbrella of I'm just tired. So anyway, if I was feeling anything along those lines, I would just have a day-to-day lifestyle, especially on the road, that would kind of try to level out and minimize those bad days, if you like. And for me, what that looked like was just consistent exercise. I will say as well that when I'm on my period, I don't suffer too badly with things like cramps. So I'm very lucky, very, very lucky. And I know people that suffer immensely with period pains, and like some people literally are bedridden, can't leave their house. Obviously that's very difficult. And there's ways that you can kind of make that a little bit easier with medication and various things, and other sort of homeopathic things. But as I say, I come from a position of being very privileged in that my periods have never affected me that badly in terms of pain. But as I say, energy levels, in terms of just managing that, every day I would exercise or thereabouts. I would just try to do some sort of physical activity. Even if I was feeling tired, I would push through. I don't know whether this was the best idea, but it's what I did, and it did get me through. In terms of eating, I would make sure that I'm eating the most nutritious food that I could that was available to me. Yes, it's very annoying when you're somewhere and there's like a big juicy burger and you're exhausted and all you want is that big juicy burger, but you have to be good to yourself and be like, no, go for something that's a little more healthy, you know, make sure you have vegetables and all this sort of stuff. It's sometimes you just have to suck it up and just get on with it. In saying that, on the flip side, also, if I was on my period or like either a few days either side, if I wanted some sweet treats to make myself feel better, I will do that because morale is important too. So it just depends on that. But again, this sort of comes down to very personal ways of dealing with things. And as I say, I feel like approaching this question just as like, yeah, women, okay, we have to deal with cycles and it is what it is. But I think just personally, irrespective of your gender and your biology, is that you have to just work out what you need, what your body needs, what you need emotionally to regulate yourself, you know, and just be able to do your job, I think, because we're all going to have bad days for whatever reasons, be them biological, be them personal, emotional. Some of us have chemical imbalances in our brains, so it could be because of that. I will say that medication really helped me as well in terms of medication for anxiety and depression. That really sorted me out. Also, sleep. I feel like sleep is such a wonderful way to reset. So if you go for a nap, resetting every day, or because it's hard to sleep well on tour. If you're in hotel rooms, you're in a different hotel room every night. That's hard. It's very hard to relax. I find it hard to relax unless I'm completely exhausted. On the bus, it's hard. You know, there's people always milling around. You are on the move. For me, as soon as the bus stops, I wake up. I love it when it's moving. Oh my gosh, a long journey. I'm like, oh, it's like being in a cocoon. I love it so much. It's my favorite. But yeah, as soon as we stop, then I'm like, it's too quiet. And then you just hear everyone snoring around you. So, yeah, so sleep is hard on the road. So if you can nap, there's a lot of musicians that I have worked with over the years. In between dinner and the gig, they would always go for a nap. It's not something that I was often able to do because I would wake up feeling quite groggy and worse. But again, this is something that I'm learning about myself personally. I'm getting better at naps. They're hard. I find them so difficult. There's a whole mental side of naps that really is like, yeah, I have these strange beliefs about myself and naps that make it hard for me to allow myself to sleep for a little bit just to reset. But when I do and do it successfully, oh my gosh, it's the best thing ever. So yeah, anyway, sorry, I'm gonna say I'm in a bit of a rambly mood, but I think it's because of my hormones, funnily enough. So probably, I don't know this yet, but yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, it probably is. So let's have another check of my my list. So oh, clothing. Okay, here's one for the women. Sorry, fellas. I mean, you could do this too, but I don't think you have the same sort of biological issues. One of the coolest things that I found out, that I realized on gigs is that, you're right, you know, being a drummer, I'm a sweaty Betty. I don't know about you, Suzy. I'm a sweaty Elizabeth. And, what I realized was that for stage clothes, especially on the road, obviously they get gross and all that sort of stuff. But to, let's say, maintain the crotch area for a longer period of time, using pads is just the best thing ever. Then you can just chuck them out. Also, I do sometimes use period underwear. Really useful. Same thing. So at least your trousers don't get sweaty and gross. You know what I mean? I will say that period pants on the road for like washing and stuff, not ideal. So yeah, those disposable pads, really useful. Really useful. I've been using them for years on gigs and it's just saved me so much like, ugh. Well, there's always grossness with stage clothes, but especially when you're on a tour, period pads, so good. Yes, let's go on to equipment adjustments. So again, I think that this is irrelevant of gender because it's more of a height issue. I am very lucky in that I am 5'6" and therefore I've never really had issues with kits being too big for me, aside from when I was first starting out playing, but you know, we all have that. But growing up with Charisse, I say. She's a little lady. She's 5 foot, maybe 5'1". No, I'm pretty sure she's 5 foot. And she had, and well, not so much now, still a little bit, but she had exactly the same problem as you, Suzy. I don't know how tall you are, but she had exactly the same thing. And here, I hope I'm not saying too much. I'm sure she won't mind me saying, but because Charisse is small and she was playing gigs that were, they needed loud drums, and she was working with people that were used to working with drummers who were very big men, very loud players. And, especially when she was a teenager, early 20s, she felt quite insecure about the fact that she was this smaller woman and she was comparing herself, again, comparison nightmare. She was comparing herself to the other drummers that the band members in the band had played with before and was trying to emulate them. So with that came asking them for their advice on what kit were they using, or, just gathering information. And at one stage she was playing a kit, I'm pretty sure, that had like a 24-inch bass drum. And when I tell you, she was injured so much, because she still has injuries where she has to ice her arms after gigs and stuff, because she just focused so much on playing hard and loud that it was not working for her body. As time has gone on, she's kind of lent into exactly, her stature and all that sort of stuff. I'm pretty certain she now plays a 20-inch bass drum, which, let me tell you, consistently, I'd say I get the best compliments about my drum sound when I'm using a 20-inch bass drum. There's a punchiness to it that people love and all this sort of stuff. So there's no, you can still get a great sound out of a smaller kit. But yeah, she's using a slightly smaller kit. Also, this might help you, Suzy. She started using longer drumsticks, and I think that was a huge revelation for her at the time, because she was just using 5As, I believe. And anyway, now, don't ask me what stick she's using now. I can't remember. But now she's using these longer sticks, and they have solved so many problems for her. Like I say, there's still issues with that. She still struggles with that. I am, again, in a very fortunate position that it's not really something I've struggled with. I think for me, the only thing was my drum stool height and where I felt most comfortable, but it wasn't really anything. I also used to have injuries from carrying gear, but that's kind of neither here nor there. Anyone can get those injuries. That is not size specific. So hopefully that will help slightly with you. Also, things like height of cymbals. I think, again, it's one of these things where you look at drummers and you go, that's cool, I want to have a setup like that. But you don't take into account their physiology. So some drummers can have really high cymbals and that works for them. But if you're small, it's not going to work. There is a height restriction, should we say. And it's not about, it's not about, I can reach this high, therefore I should have it this high. It should be more about, okay, what's comfortable? Things like ride position. That was always the biggest thing for me. If my ride position is out, my whole body just falls apart. It just goes, no, we're not doing this. The pains that I get are very, very quick. So I just need to be very specific about that. But again, it's more to do with physiology of height and length of limbs rather than gender. So hopefully that helps other people too. Longer sticks, that was the key, I think, for Charisse, and trying to not emulate other drummers, which we all do. We all do that. We are inspired by people, so we want to play like them. We want to, use their equipment, all that sort of stuff. It's the whole deal, isn't it? So yeah, hopefully that'll help you with that. So that's the equipment things. Okay. Yeah, so this thing of accepting that we are, I am different, Suzy, you are different, we are all different. And that doesn't need to be gender related. That's just humans. Humans are all different. And I, for years, found that so hard to accept. I spent my life before drumming just wanting to be like everyone else, just wanting to fade into the background, essentially, just not wanting to stand out even a little bit. I think we all have that when we're younger, or a lot of us at least. And I think once I started to accept that yeah, you know what, I am different, and that's okay. And I don't think that's necessarily female led. I think that's more just Emily Dolan Davis led, which I have so many little idiosyncrasies and a combination of so many different ways of thinking, ways of talking to myself, that some of which well, a lot of them I'm really grateful in a lot of respects because it's gotten me to where I am. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that I would consider not healthy now that I am still working on. It's a nightmare. No, it's actually really interesting and I'm really enjoying it, but it's hard. It's really, really hard. And when you recognize how you've maybe been speaking to yourself in the past, I feel quite ashamed sometimes of the way that I used to treat myself. It's not nice. And I would never treat another human like that. And when you think about it, it's like, why would I treat myself like that? That's so strange, but we're all a bit strange like that. So I think just noticing your own idiosyncrasies and working with them is really useful. Just being more self-aware, which again, Suzy, everything about what you're saying, I just feel like, yeah, you're doing all the right things. Even down to, as you said, you bringing a spanner to gigs to make sure that you don't hurt your wrists when you're doing things. I love that. I am all about that. It's adapting to what you know your limitations are as a person. It's not because you're a woman. It's not because you're a certain age. It's not because XYZ. It's just because you are who you are. We all have limitations, whether they're physical, whether they're mental, whether they're capability wise, playing, ability wise. That's what I was trying to say. Whether it's, vocabulary wise, like I struggle with often. We all have our strengths and weaknesses, strengths and limitations, and you lean into those strengths. Suzy, I'd say one of your strengths is noticing these things about yourself, finding patterns and working with them. That's such a huge strength. The majority of people don't do that, and they become sort of a victim to what is going on within themselves, but they don't know why or what's happening. And it feels that you're very self-reflective, which I can relate to. I would argue I'm too self-reflective sometimes, and I get in my own head and I spiral, and here's my biggest issue, I think. No, let's rephrase. Here's an issue I struggle with is that I'm so busy taking responsibility for everything that happens to me. Or has happened to me. Like, I want to take responsibility so I can retain agency, retain control. That's another one of mine. I'm a control freak. You know this, I know this, I've spoken about it plenty. But I really struggle with allowing space for outside influences, whether they be social, i.e. refusing to accept that by being a female, I'm going to have a different experience to other people in music. I refused it. I was like, nope, we're all the same. And like I say, I think in a lot of respects, it served me so well because I would not allow that to be a limiting factor for myself. But in saying that, yes, there were plenty of interactions and situations and opportunities that were informed by the fact that I was a female and whether I got those opportunities or not. But again, that kind of doesn't change the end result. What did change was the fact that by me taking responsibilities for those outside influences of what someone else was projecting onto me, or their issue with me being a woman, say, as an example, I would take responsibility for those outcomes, which is fine in some respects, but the fact that I would berate myself and punish myself for those outcomes when actually I didn't have a lot of control over them, I don't think was healthy. But at the same time, it has led me to where I am, and I made myself become a better musician for it, even though it was through a lot of pain and a lot of, like I say, negative self-talk is how I'm going to choose to put it. And, it was not great. It was not great, but again, it's got me to where I am. So I kind of have there's a duality going on there. It's not one thing or the other. It's just a combination of a whole bunch of things. So with that being said, I also wanted to just the last part of your question, Suzy, we're almost done, I promise, was about this thing of, other people's comments to you. So I personally they're one of the joys of my life, are those sorts of comments of like, oh, are you bringing in your boyfriend's kit? Or, oh, I had the best one. Oh, there's so many good ones, but like, how do I tell this story? Okay, so when I was doing a lot of the 80s gigs, there were these festivals that would happen around the country in the UK. And it was kind of this set group of people that would travel around. So you'd always come across the same faces, and then the bands would change often. But there was one particular person who I chatted to, we would see each other, very friendly, rah, rah, rah. But they had obviously not seen that I was a drummer, that I was playing on stage. Anyway, I walked past them once and I was like going to stage and I was holding my sticks. And they said to me, oh, that's nice that you're holding the sticks for Jonathan. Because it was either with Howard or it was with Kim, I guess, because it was a double drummer gig. And I looked at them and I like, are you serious? And I was like, yeah, sure. And anyway, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. And I lean into it because I really enjoy it. It's a fun thing for me. And I went on stage and I played, and afterwards the look on this person's, they were mortified that they had genuinely said that to me. Like, they're like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, like I just didn't realize, like I've never seen you play and I didn't realize that you're drumming and and I was like, dude, it's fine. I actually found it really funny. He's like, I'm mortified. It was so good, it was so enjoyable. But I've always had that thing of like, people will always say, this wasn't even that long ago. It was probably maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So not even that long ago. But anyway, I've had that since, when I first started. And I can't remember why I've had this attitude, but I always just was like, I just let my playing do the talking. And for some reason, I've always been secure in the fact that I can just allow people to see me play, and that will shut them up, and that will be the best like comeback than any words that I can say. So for me, and it's just, I wonder if it's because I know that by them saying that to me, they have such a nothing opinion of what I'm about to do, that no matter what I do, it's going to be impressive to them. I think that was sort of my mentality, because it wasn't like I was like, I'm a great drummer. I've never really thought that. But like I say, I think my playing was the loudest thing I could ever say to anyone. Well, literally, as well as figuratively. And so my approach to when people say things, they're like little nuggets. I love it when they happen, and I lean into it, and I really I soak it up, and I play into it. Like, let's say, I can't remember what, there was one, so you said about, oh, you bringing in your boyfriend's drums. I would be like, yeah, like I've got the short end of the straw there. He's nowhere to be seen as well. It's that sort of thing. There was what was the other one that you had? Oh yeah, I wasn't expecting you to be so good. Things like that. And it's like, oh, thank you. Like, just really, I don't know. I love those moments. They used to happen so much to me when I was younger. And as I got older, they happened less and less for various reasons. And I love those moments. I love being or feeling like I'm an underdog. I love when people underestimate me. It feeds my soul. I'm sure that there is something to say about that psychologically, I'm sure, but I don't care, because it gives me so much pleasure, like so much pleasure. Oh, this was another good one that I had. I was playing a gig, I think it was an 80s tribute band. It might have been a George Michael tribute, actually, but anyway. We'd played the first set, so this person had seen me play. And then in the interval, we had an interval, and I was walking around. I probably went to go get a drink or something, and someone that I had seen on the way in, so they were working at the venue, or they were, I don't know, and they said, oh, did you have to, like, did the band have to have a break because you got tired? They said it genuinely as well. It was so good. I was like, yeah, it's very tough. I'm very exhausted. And I think what this comes down to for me, like I say, and I want to bring this more into my own day-to-day life. I kind of want to end on this. For me, I really didn't care about what anyone else thought. In fact, no. Like anyone that wasn't a peer or a musician, obviously we're all insecure, and I very much did care what other musicians thought about me because it would impact my work. But when it came to like audience members, it's not that I didn't care. Of course I care a little bit, but I was so secure in my ability in terms of like doing the job that those sorts of things never got to me. I just enjoyed them. They were so enjoyable. And like I say, I think I'm trying to bring that into my day-to-day life now, where I'm like, right, I like me. Because for me, for my playing, I was like, look, I know I can do this job and I'm going to go do my job. Like, and I love it and it's fantastic. And whatever you think, if you think I'm an awful drummer, that's fine. That's up to you. Like, oh, someone once asked me on a Howard Jones gig, which is a all electronic stand-up kit. Oh, I really like your toy drum kit. That was another one. That was fun. That was a woman that said that to me, actually. Very sweet. Because sometimes they think they're being complimentary. That's always a really interesting one for me as well. But anyway, so yeah, this thing of like not caring what people think when it came to my drumming, because I knew in myself, I'm doing this thing. This is my job. I am at a level because I've been working professionally for a long time now, and it's fine. And obviously early doors, it wasn't as confident, but right now I'm like, yeah, and there's certain things, and I speak about this, where I feel confident. Like I feel confident that if I choose to set my mind to something, I will find a way, because it's how I am. It's how I'm wired for whatever reason. So I'm very confident in that. Where I struggle is where I meet people and I am away from my drums. People don't know that I'm a drummer. I'm just there as Emily. Hi, nice to meet you. I get freaked out if I'm vulnerable with people that they're not going to like me. And I'm working on that. And it is incredibly hard for me. But I need to bring that same energy of going on gigs and people saying weird things to me and being like, yeah, let's lean into that. I need to bring that same level of confidence, I think, into my like everyday. I was going to say real life experience, but you know what I mean? Every day with normal people where I'm like, yeah, okay, this is me. And if you don't like it, that's okay. I don't need everyone to like me. And look, even now my shoulders are going up and all this sort of stuff. And, you know, I get little smatterings of that through like Instagram messages, say, who will say something, they're trying to be mean or whatever. And I do laugh about it, to be fair. I don't really take it particularly personally because they've got their own stuff going on, obviously. But yeah, it's an interesting thing to try and like convert that over to other parts of your life, I suppose. And that's what I'm trying to do. But anyway, I feel like this has been one of the most rambly episodes for a long time. But I will say a massive thanks to Suzy for this question. And it is I love how specific. I love how you are educating me. I love how I feel like in some respects we're going through a similar learning curve, but in different ways. And I hope that this has helped someone else that is listening, whether you're female or whether you're a dude who's just interested and wants to understand a little bit more about, you know, what someone else might be going through, like on the road or whatever else, and just normalizing it. I think it's really important. I think it's hard because I think there's so little research into it, and yeah, all those sorts of things. I hope we didn't lose all the male listeners early on. I doubt we have, because like the people that listen to this podcast are the people that are about the people, regardless of gender or anything. Regardless of anything, we're all just humans here trying to do the best we can. And I think that, yeah, I very much expect that most of the listeners have listened all the way through, and I thank you for that. And I thank Suzy for your question. If you have your own question that you'd like me to answer, again, be as specific as Suzy or even more specific, that would be wonderful. You can go to emilydrums.com/AMA. And yeah, just like I say, there's a backlog of a few questions, but I think there's maybe 7 in my inbox right now, so you might have to wait a few weeks, but I will get to you. I will get to your question and we will have a chat about stuff. So please do put in your questions ASAP. Yes, if you enjoyed this episode, please do feel free to like, share, and subscribe. You know the drill. And if you would like some more personalized one-on-one coaching, you can book in for a free 30-minute taster session with me at emilydrums.com. It's a 30-minute call. We chat about where you're at right now, where you want to be, and I will let you know any sort of thoughts that I have just initially by talking to you, some things that could help. At the end of that call, I'll talk to you about what it could look like if you wanted to do some proper coaching moving forward, but there is no obligation at all. We can just have a 30-minute chat. It would be my honor to get to chat to you for 30 minutes and hopefully help in some way. So if that interests you, go to emilydrums.com. Anyway, I hope you're having a lovely day, wherever you are, whatever you're up to. I'm probably about to go and collapse because I feel like I've given a lot of energy and I feel fine. I know I'm going to eat, and that should hopefully curb the situation. But hope you're having a great day, wherever you are, whatever you're up to, and I shall see you next time for another episode. All right, lots of love to you. See you later. Bye.
It's